Welcome to lesson 72 of our interactive notes. We are measuring angles with circles, pages 17 and 18. So in our previous lesson, we looked at angle measures in comparison to circles, dividing up circles into pieces. There's always 360 degrees in the full circle. So here we go. Content objective for MD measurement data CB5. I can understand that angles are measured with reference to a circle, with its center at the common endpoints of the rays. Language objective, I can use vocabulary related to circles and degrees to explain how to find angle measures using circles. Social objective, I can work with others to show how to use circles to find angle measures. So, in the last lesson, we divided up a circle into different sections and ended up with a variety of angle measures. Well, if we divide it up into 360 pieces, we get 1 degree each. And that's where we get this circle protractor. It's hard to see the numbers. Sorry, with the copying, it didn't copy well, but you can at least see the major ones, our benchmark ones: 0, 90, 180, and 270, and then when we come all the way back, it's also 360. And these in between go by tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So even if you can't see the numbers, just count by 10 from the ones that you can see, and you'll be able to get the answer. Because we're not getting down to the precise 1 degree difference. We're going by tens and fives in 4th grade. So in upper grades, you will be more precise, but in this one, you just have to go by tens and fives. So we look to see if it's halfway in between or not. Okay, so on this first one, we've got the vertex at the center of the circle. We've got 1 ray pointing at 0. So we're just going from 0 up to here. Now, is this angle acute, right, obtuse, or straight? Acute is less than 90 degrees. Right is exactly 90 degrees. Obtuse is greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180. And straight is 180 degrees. Well, this is a very small angle. It's less than this 90 degrees, so it is an acute angle. And that means the number that we get needs to be less than 90 degrees. So starting at 0, 10, 20, 30. 30 degrees. This angle here goes past the 90 degrees. It's larger, so it is an obtuse angle. It is not straight. So I know my answer here is going to be larger than 90, but less than 180. So I'm starting at the 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So we get to that 90. 100, 110. Because we took that circle and cut it up into 360 pieces, so they're each 1 degree. Each of those pieces. And then these are just showing them in groups of 10. So it's cut into 36 pieces. Okay, this next one, we start at 0. It looks like it terminates or ends before we get to 90 degrees. It is smaller than 90 degrees, so it is an acute angle. And it looks like it also goes in between the two numbers. So we have to look halfway in between. So starting at the 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then halfway between 60 and 70 is 65 degrees. We won't be getting much more precise than that. Okay, this is definitely larger than 90 degrees and not quite 180 degrees, so it is an obtuse angle. So instead of counting from 0, I know if I count to up here, I get to 90. So I'll start with 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, but it's not pointing exactly there, and it's not pointing exactly there. It's pointing halfway in between 160 and 170. So this would be 165 degrees. So on all of these, one of the rays is pointing at the 0, so it makes it a lot easier to be able to see. Because if you have the numbers written, it's pointing straight to, this says 110 if it were clearer. This one says 30. This is between 60 and 70. It's a lot easier to see when you have one of your rays on a 0. On these, they're not on a 0. That's okay. So this one's kind of hard to tell if it may be acute, right, or obtuse. So let's see. We're pointing here. So I'm going to count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And it's pointing directly at that number, not halfway, so it is 90 degrees. Well, if it's exactly 90 degrees, it is a right angle. And we could put that square. That square only goes in right angles, nothing else. To show it's that square corner, that right angle. None of the other ones get that. They may get an arc. You could put an arc on there to show we're looking at angle measure. But that square only goes in 90 degrees, nothing else. Okay. Now this one looks like it's obtuse, but let's check for sure. So it looks like it's pointing halfway in between here. So instead of counting by tens that way, I'm going to start from this side because it's pointing to a definite number. So I'm going to count from this side over this way. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130. So halfway between 130 and 140 is 135 degrees. That is greater than 90 degrees, so that is an obtuse angle. This one's very tiny, so I can already see it's an acute angle. Okay, so halfway in between and halfway in between, we get 10. Another way to look at it is this right here is 85 and this is 75. 85 take away 75 is 10 degrees. So you can use subtraction to help you figure out the answer as well. So here this looks like it's acute, but I'll wait till I have the angle measure for sure. So here 10, 20, 30, 40. Looks like it's in between the two, so between 40 and 50 is 45 degrees. That's exactly half of 90, so you could see there's two 45-degree angles there. 45 is less than 90, so it is an acute angle. Alright, I didn't say it earlier, but you do need a straight edge of some sort, so you could use the side of a folder, you could use a ruler, you could use the side of a pencil box potentially, just something that has a straight edge, and you must use a straight edge. So now we have to draw these different angles. Now it's easier to draw if you start at 0, unlike these up here that we tried. it makes it a lot harder when one of the rays is not at 0. So we want to try to make sure it's pointed at 0 because it makes things easier. Okay, so we're going to start here. Here's 0 on this side. Okay. So we go at the center, straight out to the 0. And we put an arrow because it's a ray. It has one endpoint at the center, and it goes to the right forever. So we have our first ray. Now we need our second ray to be at 60 degrees. Well, we have to find 60 degrees. So from 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Here's 60 right here. So now I have my other point. You need 2 points to make a line. So I'm going to line those two up. And there's my 60-degree angle. Okay, next one we have our 35-degree angle. So we're going to start at 0 again. So we make our ray at 0. Now we have to find where the other side terminates or ends. 10, 20, 30, and this is 40. So halfway between 30 and 40 is about here. Okay, then we line up those two dots. Connect them. Put our other arrow because it is a ray. Okay, next we have a 70-degree angle. I'm going to line it up. At the 0. I want these nice and straight. The end point is at the center, so now we need to get to 70 degrees. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So we're going to line up those two dots. Put our arrow on. Now this says 54 degrees. Well, we won't get down precisely, but we're going to get pretty close. As you get into higher grades, you'll need to be more precise with that. So let's get to our 0 first. We have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and this is 60. So it's going to be close to the middle, but a little closer to the 50 side, because 54 is closer to 50 than it is to 60. Line it up. Okay, 27, so this is going to be a little closer to 30 than it is to 20. So let's get down our first ray at 0. And then our second ray at about 27, so 10, 20. And then here's 30. It's going to be a little closer to 30 than it is to 20. If it's not exact, that's okay. This is just practice. Learning to use a circle protractor. But it definitely should be a cube. Actually, all of these are. Now 83 degrees, so it's going to be a little closer to 80 than it is, well, a lot closer to 80 than it is to 90. is 0. See where the other side terminates. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. 80, and it's just a little bit past 80. Line those up. You notice I always have my pen or pencil right next to the straight edge to make sure it's straight. And we put our other arrow on. So now we've drawn these different angles using a circle protractor. Let's go ahead and practice more on our part 2 with our 3-column notes.